Thank you very much, everyone. We are we're going to resume now, and I think that our next guest needs no real introduction because he's a rather iconic figure in the education space, as they would say, in the ed reform movement and in education generally, because he is the founder of the nation's only national school system, effectively. I'd like for you all to meet and greet Mike Feinberg, who is the co-founder of the Knowledge is Power program. Mike's bio is in your materials, and I'm not going to dwell on it for a long time, but he is a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania. He has an honorary doctorate from Yale. He founded KIPP in 1994 along with Dave Levin. He's a Teach for America alumni, and importantly, he was awarded the Thomas B. Fordham Prize for Excellence in Education, the National Jefferson Award for Greatest Public Service by a Private Citizen. In 2008, America's Best Leaders by U.S. News and World Report, and has been featured on Oprah, 60 Minutes, the New York Times, and the Washington Post in the context of KIPP's accomplishments. So without any further ado, let me introduce Mike Feinberg, my good friend.
Thank you, Judge. Appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, for inviting me to be here today. And I so appreciate what you guys were doing. I was telling Ms. Perkins on the break that there's so many communities that need to have this conversation who don't. Right? I mean, you know, we're going to get to it later on, but misery enjoys company. I mean, no one has cracked this nut. Everyone's trying to figure this out, right? But there really are probably about half of the communities and cities in this country are still in denial. They don't even get in a room and have this conversation. So kudos to all of you for having the courage to get in the room and admit that things aren't rosy and we need to do something about it. I want to tell you a little bit more about kind of like the KIPP perspective, and I can bring the charter perspective in general. Although, remember, there's no such thing as one charter school for this country. Let's preface that by saying, as I talk about charters, realize I do not think that charters are the answer. Charters are an opportunity. In the hands of a great educator, great things can happen. In the hands of a lousy educator, lousy things can happen. In the hands of a crook, fraudulent things are going to happen, right? But I think, there is a place for charters at the answer table. And I think I can bring that perspective along, specifically about KIPP, and our lessons learned over the last 2 decades now of what we've done to help more children succeed in school and life, and what that can do to help the ecosystem here in Columbus as well. Before I get going, let me just say one quick disclaimer and warning. As you learn about KIPP, notice it does create severe hair loss. So I'll put that there right now. I had a ponytail when I started. So anytime we talk about KIPP or ed reform, I will always start by thinking about the Maasai. The Maasai are a tribe in Africa who have an interesting ritual when their warriors travel between their villages, the way they greet one another every day. And when one warrior passes the other warrior, he'll turn to him and ask, "And how are the children?" And the other warrior will respond back, "All the children are well." I love that. It's right focus, right expectations from a group of people, right? It's a focus on the well-being of their children, and the expectation of well-being of all their children. It's something they have built into their very fabric of society, what they do 50 times a day. Good morning, good afternoon, how you doing? And how are the children? All the children are well. If we ask that question here in Columbus, in Ohio, in the United States, how are our children doing? If we were honest, we would say, You know, there are some children that are doing just fine. But the brutal fact is not nearly enough. And just to give you some overlying stats about this at the national level, and Ohio falls within the bands of the national stats as well, 31% of all American adults have a college degree. We haven't gotten worse at that number, and people bash it and think our public education system is going to hell in a handbasket, it's getting worse. We've actually flatlined at that for the last several decades. Right? The problem is, age 45 and above in the U.S. at 31%, we lead the world by far at that percentage. Age 23 to 43 at 31%, we're 16th in the world and dropping like a rock. So it's not necessarily that we've gotten worse, it's that the rest of the world is starting to figure out how you teach better, how you teach more of all the children, and we've got to catch up to that. Now, quick disclaimer, you're going to hear me talking a lot about college prep. And I don't know if it's come up yet here in the commission, but Here in Ohio and around the country, there is an interesting debate about, is college right for every child? So I'm going to do a quick infomercial on that question, right? I have 3 heartfelt responses to that question and 1 pragmatic response. My heartfelt responses are, most people who argue that college is not for every child, most of those people have college degrees. I find that hypocritical, right? Secondly, the Great Recession we're still coming out of in lots of cities and states in this country where unemployment was 8, 9, double-digit %. Overall, the unemployment rate never hit greater than 5 to 6% for people with college degrees. Third, if you go to any first-grade class anywhere here in Columbus, any neighborhood, any class, and ask the kids, simple question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Most of what you hear require college to do those things. So think about it. So therefore, if we're going to help our children achieve their hopes, dreams, and aspirations, we've got to aim for college. With that said, at KIPP, we agree college is not for every child. The way we think about it, though, the skills to go to college are for every child. And it's not for K-12. It's not for me. It's not for anyone in this room to decide which kid goes and which kid doesn't go. Our collective goal should be that after the kid's 12, 13, 14, 15 years of education, all the doors of opportunity are open. If they want to go to a 4-year college or university, they can. They want to go to a 2-year community college, technical school, trade school, they can. They want to join the military, they can. They want to be the next Bill Gates entrepreneur, they can. They want to sit on their mom's couch, good luck. Right? But all those doors of opportunity will be open, so they're going to have the freedom to do in this world what they want to do. For us, we don't even see college as not the end. College is still a means to the end. The ultimate end, which we'll all be thinking about here in this room, is how do we empower our children to truly have the freedom as adults to do in this world what we want to do. And that's what we have to collectively noodle on. So 31% clearly doesn't cut it. And when we unpack 31% by income levels, to figure out how do we move 31%, the top quartile income in this country, and I'm talking about the richest of the rich, the top quartile, the whole fourth, tens of millions of kids, they graduate from college at a rate of 82%. That's their pipeline. Is 82% 100%? No. Can we make that higher? Sure. It'll marginally impact 31% because that number is already so high. Compare that to the bottom quartile income in the United States. Again, not the poorest of the poor, tens of millions of kids in that one too. The bottom quartile income in the United States, those kids graduate from college at a rate of 8%. So 82% to 8%. That, my friends, is our achievement gap. We can look at achievement gap by looking at NAEP scores and state test scores and dropout rates. And that's interesting, and those are leading indicators. But for me, the ultimate achievement gap is after we've had our kids in school for their 12, 13, 14, 15 years, what opportunity do they have? And unfortunately, in 2013, in the United States of America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, we talk about this American dream, depending on the time and place of your birth, you either have an 82% shot or an 8% shot to be able to do in this world what you want to do. That is absolutely unacceptable. And that's why we're all in this room. And I think when we think about, when we take a step back and think from a city, whole community perspective, what are we going to do about it? I think there's 3 kind of ways to look at it I want to talk about. The first one is just simply has to do with beliefs and mindsets. And I might be preaching to the choir in this room, but when we think about the 82% to 8% disparity, too many people here in Columbus, in Ohio, in the United States, still believe that that's the way it is. That until we fix poverty and eradicate poverty from the planet, we're going to reap what we sow, and those are the numbers, and no matter what we try to tinker around with on the edges in schools, you can't change those numbers. I personally don't believe that. People in this room might not believe that, but it's prevalent out there. People know in the PC world we don't talk about it at cocktail parties, all right? But we believe it. Just to illustrate that, I want everyone in your head right now, picture 2 high schools here in Columbus. Picture the most elite college prep high school in town. Private, public, doesn't matter. Now picture typical inner city Columbus high school. Let's start with the elite college prep school. A kid there graduates, goes to college. Yeah, they all do. A kid there drops out of school. What happened? We're all whispering in carpool line. Right? Now go to the typical inner city Columbus school. Kid there drops out. Have to. Maybe more than half in some of our really troubled schools. A kid there graduates, goes to college, is successful in college, goes out in the world, successful in the world. Friends, we make a TV movie of the week about that kid. So that just shows at societal level, we still hold different beliefs and expectations on our children depending on the time and place of their birth. And that's one of the fundamental critical paths we have to address, because if we don't start from a place where we believe a different outcome is possible, then we're just all spinning our wheels in a room like this. Because why are we going to have the courage and to spend the political capital and take the hits to do change, because change is never easy? Why are we going to do that if we ultimately don't truly believe in our heart of hearts that a different outcome is possible, right? So that's why belief and mindset is so critical. Just quick kind of history on mission of KIPP, which why we got to this point, and then I'm going to tell you about how the ingredients of KIPP we feel do apply to other district, whole city reform. Dave and I were two Teach for America Corps members, as Judge Marbley explained, back in 1992. We got frustrated with what was happening with our babies at the end of elementary school and go up to middle school. So we started the Knowledge is Power program, where we motivated kids to come to school in 5th grade from 7:30 in the morning till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They came for 4 hours on Saturdays, came for a month in the summer. We gave them 2 or 3 hours of homework every night to do, easy to enforce when you're 6'4" and have a big bushy ponytail at the time. 1 year wasn't enough. Even though they learned a lot in that 5th grade, they were still sending them to middle schools where no one was going to push the kids as hard as we pushed. We went back and got the district in Houston, and as well as the district in New York, to let us turn our program into schools within schools in the school system, where we were able to keep the kids 5th grade through 8th grade. Along the way, we converted into charter schools. Dr. Rod Page, later Secretary Rod Page, U.S. Secretary of Education, he was superintendent at the time. With his blessing, he made us into a charter school because he recognized that we needed the freedom to do what we were doing with the kids, and we'll talk more about that freedom in a minute. And then in 2000, we partnered with Don Doris Fisher, the founders of the Gap and Old Navy. They gave us a grant to figure out how to leverage the success of this little tiny school in Southwest Houston, this little tiny school in South Bronx, New York, to the greater good. And we decided to go out and find other great teachers that were already doing great work in their 700 square foot box and teach them on how to become a leader, not just of their classroom, but of the entire school. And we were going to help them to plan, open, run their own KIPP-like school around the country. So today, there's 125 KIPP schools in 20 states and D.C. We are not running them centrally. They all have local governance. We are connected by our 5 pillars I'll describe and the KIPP name. And we are so proud we have examples like KIPP Journey and the KIPP Columbus here, which have their one school growing into a system of schools. And beyond the terrific work that Hannah and her team are doing with the kids here, we want to see that impact go well beyond that one school. Our overall results, by the way, I'm not here as a person who's fixed this and closed the achievement gap. We've made a lot of progress, but we still have a lot of work to do. If you look at our results, if you put them on that compared to like the 31%, 82%, 8%, I can talk to you about our test scores, and here in Columbus we have great scores, and places like in Baltimore, KIPP Ujima Village, which is in a neighborhood from that HBO The Wire made famous. The KIPP kids there have the highest math scores of any public middle school in the state of Maryland. I mean, there's stuff like that going on. Beyond that, though, it's like that's nice, but what about the end of the day? So if we look at all of our 8th graders, wherever they go to high school, we have high schools, some stay with us, some go to other high schools. If we track all of our 8th graders, 90% of them are going to college. And I could tell you 100% of my kids are going to college if I look at the class of 2013. But that's not being honest, because those are not the exact same kids we started with. So we back up to 8th grade to be more transparent. 9% are going to college, and of the ones old enough who can possibly have graduated by now from college, again, tracking from 8th grade, 45% have graduated, 19% are persisting. Persisting is defined as they're on the Mike Feinberg plan. They're having a really good time in college, and we got to get them out. They will eventually graduate. So, but take off the 19% persisting, even just at 45%, we have mixed feelings about it. Compared to 8% of low-income kids who graduate, we're already 5 to 6 times the national average. We celebrate that. Compared to 31% of all Americans who have a college degree, we're 14 points higher. We celebrate that. Compared to 82% of top quartile income, we got an achievement gap, right? So we are hungry to keep learning and growing, which is why I like to come to places like this and share, but we also need to learn and grow as well. And I want that to kind of be the disclaimers we put out there. So as we've started all these schools around the country, I said we were training people how to plan, open, run their own KIPP-like school. The key word there is KIPP-like. All KIPP schools don't look exactly the same. They're not twins, but they are cousins, right? And if you unpack the genetic code of what makes these schools in the same family after now 19 years of evolution in different places and looking like different schools, how can you tell they're all in the same family? It's our 5 pillars. And the 5 pillars are what I want to talk about because I think there's lessons learned in what we do here that apply not just to KIPP and not just to other charter schools, but to the public education system as a whole. If we want to keep it even more simple, I can even unpack it even easier than the 5 pillars and say, I challenge everyone to think about the fact that if you go to any school that's working well, anywhere in the world, it's got 2 ingredients. It's got great teaching and more of it. Keep it simple. Easy to say, hard to do, all right? But that's the simple formula for success. Great teaching and more of it. If there's any secret sauce, it's how do you create the culture so that great teaching and more of it can flourish in all of our schools and the parents, the students, the teachers are all bought in to great teaching and more of it. How do you create the culture? Leadership. Leadership is a critical path to make that happen. Leadership is always the leader, the entity that helps set the tone, set the culture, set the environment, recruits great teachers in, develops people to become great teachers, right? Removes people that aren't great teachers from the system in a respectful way, all of the above. Leadership is the key. So that's why that's going to be one of our pillars to talk about. So that's at its simplest form. But to put a little bit more meat on the bones, we talk about our 5 pillars. Our first pillar is more time on task. Every day, every week, and every year. Simply need enough time to get everything done. Take a typical school day here in Columbus. What, 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, roughly? 7-hour school days, right? But that doesn't mean 7 hours of instruction for our children. Take out lunch, take out recess, take out bathroom breaks. Take out a fluffy ancillary period instead of a good ancillary period in too many of our schools. You're down to 4 hours of instruction a day, maybe 5 in some schools, 4 to 5 hours a day. And we have our kids come to school for 180 days a year. But maybe 180, then there's waiver days that make it 178, 177. 4 to 5 hours a day for less than half the year. Let me say that one more time. 4 to 5 hours a day for less than half the year. With that amount of time on the clock, we can't expect our teachers and principals to be great. They have to be miracle workers, right? That's not enough time to get the kids caught up to where we want them to be and keep accelerating to be on a college prep track. Now, that's one of 5 pillars. More time by itself will not produce success. This is not algebra where a negative times a negative equals a positive, right? More of a bad thing is not going to turn into a good thing, right? But simply from a starting point of simply putting enough time on the clock to set the teachers, principals, and system up for success is crucial to do. We're able, and I know that potentially that means more, it also makes it more expensive. We're able, in just about every place we operate, we're spending the same amount of money as a traditional public school system. You know, as a charter school, there's a haircut in most communities where you get maybe 89% of the same dollars that the school system gets. Here, I think it's even probably less than that, right? So we have to raise private dollars to make up that difference. And when we start a brand new school from scratch in year 1, it will be more expensive per child because it's only got 100 kids and not efficient. But at full size, you look at our government dollars and our private dollars, we don't spend more than the public school system spends, except for maybe places like California. California's so screwed up, thank God we're all not California. All right, we're not trying to match California, right? But in most places, we will spend the same amount because we want to prove what you can do on the same dime. The way we've been able to increase the school hours on that same dime is by reducing administrative costs. In our schools, we don't have 5 assistant principals running around counting textbooks. Sorry, I'm a little jaded from back in the day. And we don't have, at the central office level, we don't have an assistant superintendent of left brain instruction. Right? So all those savings get pumped into the classroom to pay the teachers more. I don't know exactly how the funding works in Columbus, but to give you Houston example, in the Houston Independent School District receives all in probably $9,000 to $10,000 per child. Okay? From all government sources, local taxes, feds, state, everything else. The principals in the HISD schools get about $3,400 per kid to budget to spend on their children. So it's about about a third of the money. The other 2/3 is spent somewhere else. At KIPP, we, between what we get from the state and feds, and we supplement it up with private dollars, we're also spending $9,000 to $10,000 per child all in as well. Our principals budget roughly $6,000 per kid, right? The rest is spent somewhere else. The somewhere else is it's facilities, it's food, it's transportation, it's insurance, it's general administration, all that. So we've been able to figure out how you run all the something else on a third of the money, whereas the Houston Independent School District takes nearly 2/3 of the money for something else. So if you can be more efficient with the something else and push that money into the schools, that's how you're able to have more time. The other thing that's critical about more time is it changes the either or into an and. Right today, if there's a school in Columbus that realizes we got our reading scores, our math scores are not where we want to be, let's increase reading and math instruction, which is a logical conclusion to come to, right? It's a good strategy to do that. In their 4 to 5 hours of instruction a day for less than half the year, they got to make some tough choices. If you're going to double block reading, if you're going to double block math, what are you taking out? Science? History? Take out all the fun? No fine arts? No athletics? All right? At KIPP, because you have these longer school hours, the either or turns into an and. You can have more time for reading, more time for math, without sacrificing science, history, fine arts, physical education. It's not a pressure cooker, it's a pressure release, more time to get everything done. By the way, for our teachers as well, our teachers don't have a typical 40, 45-minute planning period. Our teachers have about two and a half hours of planning a day within that time, so they have more time to get everything done as well. And the other thing is we're going to motivate our children to go to school this long, which we do. You've got to have what we call the joy factor, the J factor. God bless the child that wakes up in the morning and says, today's geometry class. Yes. Right? I love that kid. There's like 5 of them in the world, right? For most kids, though, it's like, today's the football game. Yes. Today's the debate contest. Yes. Today's the art show. Yes. Right? So we got to put those things into the curriculum to motivate our kids to be excited about school. And if, at its simplest form, all we've really done is we've taken your typical school day, a before-school program, an after-school program, a weekend program, a summer program, and just went school, right? Instead of sending kids every day, week, and during the year to different agencies, different organizations with their different cultures and different strategies, why can't you keep the kids under one dedicated roof, with one dedicated faculty, with one dedicated culture, with one dedicated mission all day long, right? Which is now getting into the whole idea of community partnerships. We certainly don't have all the answers ourselves, which is why we partner. We find the other agencies and groups out there in the community doing good work with social services, with health, with housing, all the other elements that we need. And instead of just sending the kids and families running all over the city, why not use the school as a central hub, keep the kids there, all right, bring in the families as needed as well, before school, after school, weekends, and now you got lightning in a bottle. So that's more time. Our second pillar is choice and commitment. The fact that within the public education system, all right, we provide parents, students, and teachers with the choice of what school they go to and make commitments to. Now, this is where it gets a little dicey, and this is where it's our charter schools and choice and attack on public education. And to step back from it, I want us to separate two concepts. There's public education, and then there's the way we deliver public education. The concept of public education that John Dewey envisioned, which we've been doing now for over 100 years, where as communities we collectively pool our resources and provide education to all our children, that's a beautiful, cherished concept, and that should not change, and we should guard it vigorously. How we've chosen to deliver it, though, which is we create these tax zones called school districts, and we elect board members to govern the school district. And the board members hire a superintendent, and the superintendent hires principals, and the principals run schools, and we draw zones around the schools. And if you live in that zone, that's the school you go to. That's not public education. That's how we've chosen to deliver public education. And we should not have so much hubris to believe that in the last 100 years, we've created God's gift to how you deliver public education, and there's no other way to do it. Charter schools are one more way to deliver public education. Charter schools are not God's gift to how you deliver it, right? But the thought of what are we going to do to figure out, are there better ways to deliver that public education? Because the way we've set it up, by definition, is a government monopoly. Because if you live in that zone, you have to go to that school. Magnet schools don't eliminate monopoly. If McDonald's was the only restaurant in town, just because they put chicken on the menu doesn't mean it's not a monopoly anymore. Right? If you truly don't have a monopoly, different people and organizations are providing goods and services to the community. Right? So the way we've chosen to set this up is set up as a government monopoly. And my friends, in world history, there's no example of a government monopoly that's ever reformed itself from within. Right? It has taken some courageous leadership inside that system to make it better, but it's always required some external push as well on the system. And the way we think about this is if we tweak how we're delivering the system, this impacts accountability. Because right now, there is no lack of accountability in the system. I'd argue it's aimed wrong. We feel so much accountability in our schools and our systems, to a state, to the federal government, No Child Left Behind, AYP, state test scores. Right? We are under tremendous pressure in all our public education system. Right? And we should be accountable to the state and federal government. They're our largest funder. I'd argue that should be the secondary level of accountability. The primary level of accountability for all of our schools should be kids and parents. All right? So it's not simply how do we put accountability in the system, how do we aim it correctly? It's like the Lord of the Rings movie, The Eye of Sauron. Right? We're so focused on state and federal accountability, how do you shift it to kids and parents? How do you shift that? By empowering families to now have choice in public education of where they send their kids to school. Right? One more quick thing to add to that. There is choice. We should also keep it real. For families who have means, there's always choice. If you don't like the school in your neighborhood, right, you put your kids in private school. Or you move to another neighborhood where there's higher property taxes and you like the schools better. So really, the middle and upper income don't experience the monopoly system. It's low-income families that are trapped that don't have the choice. All right? So how do you get rid of that monopoly mindset? By empowering all families to be able to walk out of their house or apartment, walk right and go to one public school, walk left and go to a different public school run by a different organization. That's the game changer. Because the minute you put that in place, the accountability shifts right on that family and kid. Because now inside that school, inside that central office of the system, they got to be thinking, what are we going to do to get the kids and parents to walk through our door? Because every kid is dollars. And if dollars go somewhere else, dollars leave the system. What are we going to do to make sure that we have our customers? Right? And that's just question number one. Question number two is because choice means every day they can go somewhere else. You can gain customers, you can lose customers. What are we doing during that day to make the day so full of learning and so much fun, the kids and parents want to keep coming back for more? That's the game changer. Right? We at KIPP, we wake up every day. We've serving in Houston. I'm serving 9,000 kids right now in our schools, and we have 21 schools in Houston. Last year we had 10,000 kids and parents sign up to come to KIPP Houston. I only had room for 2,000 of them. All right, so we're saying sorry, no room to 80% of all the kids and parents who want to come. But every day all of our kids and parents could make the choice to go somewhere else. We realize that, and as much as we're going to push, as much as we have high expectations and it's about college prep, we have to remember that we are pushing our customers. And if we push too hard, or if we don't push hard enough for some of our families, right, they're going to go elsewhere. Right? And so that's why choice and commitment is so powerful. Our third pillar is power to lead. The fact there's a great, well-trained school leader in place, and the shackles are off. Right? They truly have power to lead, and they make decisions over staff and budget. I intentionally call our school leaders. I don't use the term principals because there's a difference. You can tell the difference between a principal and a school leader by what I call the shoulder shrug test. If you go up to a principal or school leader and say, No Child Left Behind, AYP, state accountability, you have to get great results, the principal will shrug the shoulders and say, you got to be kidding me. And what you'll hear is they'll say, you got to be kidding me. There's a handful of teachers in my building who are not good, but I can't get rid of them. There's new teachers I want to hire, but I can't get them through HR. And God forbid I want to move my art money bucket to my technology money bucket. I got filled forms in triplicate, wait 6 months to give it my firstborn. And you expect me to get great results? Right? So the way you get rid of that shoulder shrug is you say, all right, principal, you are now the school leader. Emphasize leader. You decide who teaches in the building. You decide who does not teach in the building. Right? You decide how to allocate your budget dollars. And now we're going to hold you accountable for your results. More freedom for more accountability. And inherent in what I'm describing right now about power to lead, and again, and if you're going to put your money where your mouth is, you're not going to give that school leader $3,000 to be the store manager. You're going to give that school leader the ability to be the leader and the $6,000 a kid to truly make the leadership decisions at the local level. So this is not top-down trying to make everything, trying to figure out what's the solution for all of our kids from some central office. It's bottom-up, empowering great people and letting the solutions come bottom-up instead of top-down. And to illustrate how it's all about great people and how this is the trap we still fall into here in Columbus, around the country, I want you to picture 2 classrooms up here that you're deciding which one you're going to put your own child into. Classroom to my left, it doesn't have a bad teacher, it has a mediocre teacher. It has every resource to the hilt. There's computers in there, there's tablets, there's science equipment, math manipulatives, reading books, piled in this room over here. Classroom to my right, bare room, not even desks, but there's a master teacher. Where do you put your own child? Come on, the interactive part of my talk. We all know instinctively we want master teacher for our kid, right? Individually we know that, but groupthink gets going. We forget that people make the difference. We forget there are no shortcuts. We start thinking, what little gizmo can we invent? Top down, right? And squeeze it into this classroom over here. You know, we'll buy 50,000 of these little gizmos, right? And put them in the classrooms over here to magically transform this classroom from bad to okay, okay to good. I mean, you know, we live in the microwave generation. I get it. We want things quick and now. That makes sense when we're cooking popcorn. It doesn't make sense when we're teaching children how to read. So we have to go back to the basics, and we have to invest in the most important resource of all, which is the human resource. Great teaching and more of it, and empowering them to take it. And it should be bottom up all the way. The central office needs to empower the school leaders. A great leader knows that a great leader, you don't dictate what goes on. You find great people and you turn them loose. You let the stallions run. All right? That's power to lead. Our 4th pillar is high expectations. As I already got into, for us, that's college prep. And that's not just at the high school level. It's at the middle school level. It's at the primary level. It's at the pre-K level. It should be at the prenatal level. We'll get there eventually. All right? But the whole thing should be focused on the end of the day. And it's not just what we tell the kids and parents. For example, I mean, my pre-K kids, they know they're the class of 2028. They're still learning how to count to 2028, but they know they're the class of 2028. More importantly, the teachers know that. So the way this plays out is the teachers are thinking in pre-K, you know, the curriculum in Texas in pre-K is you have to get the kids to learn half the letters. I hope you guys don't do that, because I always wonder what half should you learn. You know, our pre-K teachers are teaching the kids to learn all their letters, but not even because that's the goal. My teachers are thinking, I need to get the kids to learn all their letters, so in kindergarten they can read. So by elementary school they can read chapter books. So by middle school they can read their textbooks with understanding. So by high school they're independent learners. So in 2028, when they're sitting in their freshman English seminar class at The Ohio State University, they're set for success. Right? That's what my teachers are thinking in 2013. That's high expectations. And our last pillar is focus on results. I already told you our ultimate results, and while the ultimate results are about what can we do to track the number of kids going to and through college. All right? And by the way, we've partnered with a school system in outside Houston called Spring Branch ISD, where we are now doing charter schools inside the system. We are part. If you look at the paper at the end of the year and try to find the KIPP school, and you won't see it because we are inside Spring Branch ISD. Duncan Klusman, the superintendent, I think this is powerful. He's gotten rid of 5-year, 10-year vision plans. He's got one singular focus in the next 5 years. He wants to double the number of kids who leave Spring Branch ISD, all right, and wind up with a higher ed credential. The fact that he knows his number, I bet you he's one of 10 superintendents in the country that knows his number, that knows to double it. Because most school systems, again, it's not part of any accountability system right now. No, most systems don't know where their kids are 3 seconds after dropout or graduation time. Right? He knows his number, and he wants to double it. And everything he's doing is now aligned around that singular goal. I think that's very powerful. And that's why that's the ultimate goal. What are we doing daily, weekly, monthly, annually to measure the progress, make sure the kids are climbing the mountain at the right clip? Right? So that's why we feel you put all these pillars in place, the more time, the choice commitment, the power to lead, the high expectations, the great results, the kids are knocking it out of the park. All right? And we're on a mission to prove that, because there's still too many yes buts. People will come visit me in Houston or visit Dave Levin, the co-founder in New York, and they'll tour the school. And at first, at first they come cynical, and they've heard myths about what we're doing and think this only works because we must have gone and recruited really smart, low-income kids. I think that's why it works. And they look at the data and realize that's not what's going on. They think, all right, well, they must have taken all the kids. They must simply kick out all the kids who can't hang. Look at the data. That's not what's going on. All right? And so, then they're walking around realizing it's just great teaching more of it. They're getting motivated, inspired, and I'm thinking just like we learned from Harriet Ball and Ray Fasquith and our mentor teachers, so are they. And they're going to go out there and do great things. I get to the door, and with most people, the inspiration dies. And I start to hear all the yes buts. It sounds like this. This is great, but it can't work where I'm from. It can't work in Columbus. It can't work in Detroit. It can't work in Mississippi Delta. And they start telling me wherever they're from, whatever political reason, legal reason, financial reason, socioeconomic reason, they believe their community is the most screwed up place on the planet. I've had about 1,000 visitors from all over the world. There really is a contest going on, most screwed up place on the planet. And everyone thinks they're going to win. Right? So you can't win that debate at the door. So when people are saying, this is great, but it can't work in Columbus, Detroit, Mississippi Delta, I got my notes right down. All right, we have to start schools in Columbus, Detroit, Mississippi Delta, because the actual proves it possible. We are not going to hypnotize all the kids of Columbus, all the kids of Ohio, all the kids of the United States, right? But we can contribute. And what Hannah and the judge and us here are doing is wherever people are making those excuses and don't believe, that we talked about at the beginning, where they don't believe, we want to start schools and prove what can and should be happening under the same conditions. Because the day excuses end, our day solutions are going to start. And the last thing we're doing is, and so our whole approach is basically we want to see public school systems evolve into public systems of schools, right? Our school district should not go away. How we deliver public education, the district set up, is what needs to change. Instead of top-down community, here are the schools, one size fits all for everyone. Why can't we have a system of schools where the central office will take care of the buses, the beans, and the boilers, and all those central office functions, right? And empower, whether it's charters, traditional teachers, community groups, who have a great idea to start schools, let them run the schools and hold them accountable for great results. And when there's a line around the block at one school, because word's out on the street that you want to go to that school, all right, help them start more of them. And when there's an echo in this building because no one's showing up, get rid of that school and let a different organization start a school in that building. And manage your portfolio of schools. So your school system turns into the system of schools. And when you put the competition in place, it's what the analogy I was using is that eventually the choice will impact the system the way FedEx impacted the U.S. Post Office back in the 70s. When FedEx got this 10% market share, the U.S. Post Office started doing next day air, right? So FedEx didn't hurt the post office, help evolve and make them better, right? Now, it's not the best analogy because FedEx is going broke, all right? But it shows that they have to evolve their business model, all right? And ultimately, the people who benefit from all that competition are all of us, the customers, right? If it works in overnight shipping where FedEx and UPS and DHL and the post office, they all do a good job getting our packages where they want them to go because they know that we're their customers. They have to serve us well because we'll go somewhere else if they lose our package. Right? If that works in overnight shipping, why can't we provide that same type of customer focus and customer satisfaction into our public schools as well? And so if we do that, and if we have the courage to think about our system not in top-down but bottom-up, and not really hold control tight but relinquish, we, like the Messiah, one day can also say, all of our children are well. Thank you for having me here today. I appreciate it.
I'm sure they're going to get some
Time for questions, yeah.
We have time for questions. Ms. Augustine.
Well, thank you for your presentation. I don't know if I have. My question is, I was at a charter school the other day. Okay. And I just happened to take my son with me because they were on spring break. Okay. Because they were on spring break, and
Testing. Idea.
hold on a second. Is Kathy doing this? Kathy, are you trying to stop me from asking questions? My son got excited about, early college and computers and all these things, and he's in the 6th grade, and he will be in the 6th grade. And so, I was excited that he was excited, but when we had a panel of students and they were saying all these great things about this school, and so my question was, what don't you like? And everybody kind of broke down and started talking about how they don't have any programs at the school, no drama club, no sports. Right. And so that becomes a big concern for me because I went to, in high school, it was 270 something students, and I was 11th, and I was one of those students that the guy talked about earlier that just did what they needed to do to get by. So had I really been paying attention, I don't know what I would have been. But for me, the things that I don't remember any projects or classwork. I do remember some teachers that I don't like and a couple that I maybe had crushes on and stuff like that. But I remember the programs I was in and the high school dance that my boyfriend forgot to pick me up, and me and my girlfriend had to walk in our heels and our fur coats and stuff like that. Those are the things that I remember. And so I got nervous because I do want my son to get that great education, but I want him to experience. I protect his love for. I said you're doing it. Kathy keeps cutting my mic off. And where was I at? Yeah, I got a question coming. And I don't want him to miss out on those things. So what stood out to me was the school that you had inside the school. So can you tell me about that program? Because
sure. So at this on? All right. Yeah. So at Spring Branch, Landrum Middle School and Spring Branch ISD, we have set up a school within a school where it is a contract campus charter, where it's now a choice. When you walk into Landrum Middle School, you walk right and you're still in Landrum. You walk left and you're now inside the building, you're in KIPP. It's basically, think about it like a magnet program that's just open enrollment without admissions. So now the family, the kids have a choice. Stay at Landrum or go to KIPP. Go to KIPP means you have all these extra hours, everything else going on that side of the building. From looking at from the outside, it's all Landrum. And even when you see the football team run on the football field or hear the Landrum band, the KIPP kids are part of the Landrum football team, the Landrum band, everything like that. But during the day, they're in a school within a school. And it's basically what Duncan Klusman, the superintendent, realized is that one, he's not going to come up with all the solutions himself top down. So find people in the community that are doing good work and bring them inside the system, one. And then two, even within a school, don't define a school by the four walls and roof. That even within a building, that you could have more than one school inside a school building.
So how do we make that a possibility? Like, how does that become a possibility? Do you just move in, or are there things that need to change?
By having a relinquished mentality, by having a school system that then doesn't view itself as the school system, but as a system of schools, and will find outside groups like the KIPPs of the world to come in and set up schools for them inside their buildings, and still be part of the system. And so we are working for the school system. I'm working for Duncan Klusman, and we're responsible for results. If we don't get great results, he's going to kick us out. But even within the school system, I remember the day we became a charter school, the day that Rod Page made us a charter school. It's actually interesting, as KIPP has kind of become the poster children for charters around the country, the way we became a charter school is an interesting story. So Rod Page, who was superintendent at the time, in 1996, he had all the teachers of the year from all 250 schools in Houston get into the board auditorium. And he made me tell them the story of how we made KIPP, which, I tried to get a meeting with Rod Page back when I was a teacher. They wouldn't let me see him. So I found his car in the parking lot, and I sat on it, and I waited for him to come out, and I stalked him. Right? He made me tell the story, right? And then he turned to all the teachers of the year and say, see, this crazy guy, he stalked me, and I wound up, though, helping him start a school, right? I want more charter schools like KIPP, right? When he said that, that's how we became a charter school. When he said, I want more charter schools like KIPP, that was literally the day we became a charter school, which is interesting. Beyond that, though, what it shows is like even he realized he wasn't going to come up with all the answers from the superintendent's office. He brought in his rock star teachers and said, let the stallions run. Give me your ideas. I'm going to let you guys start schools as well. So that's how I think the system can do it.
Tanny?
Thank you. Thank you for being here and inspiring all of us. I remember Mark Reel, how many years ago did we visit Houston? 8 years ago. And for anyone who has not visited KIPP Journey here in Columbus, you will see the 5 pillars in action. It is a very inspirational school.
Very inspiring.
To my question, first of all, yes, and. So
Good.
What is your strategy when we talk about leadership and how critical it is? What is your strategy for recruiting great leaders? How do you go about doing that? And what advice can you give us?
We recruit and select very carefully. I think, again, we realize that it's great to teach you more of it, which means leadership's a critical path. And so you have to invest the time, money, resources, energy in doing it right. We have an extremely, extremely selective leadership process, which sometimes frustrates our local boards with how selective we are. Over the last 13 years, we've had over 5,000 people apply for the Fisher Fellowship, which is a year-long training program to train our school leaders. About 170 people have gotten a Fisher Fellowship. About 30 people did not make it through our training because it's so rigorous. So we're batting about a 2 to 3% acceptance rate. Because we have messed up around the country, and there are situations, and this, by the way, this is even, we hold ourselves, we don't wait for the districts and the state to hold us accountable. We hold ourselves accountable. There are 5 or 6 times where we've screwed up and we've had to close down, we've had to help the state or authorize to close down a KIPP school, right? It's only happened 5 or 6 times, and we've been successful 125 times because we've been so picky about who that leader is, and then we invest the time to train them well. And it's aligning the selection and the training and everything else. It's about finding people and train them on that everything they do, all the decisions they make have to have a student focus. And then the basic competencies around that are, we teach, we're finding people that already are great teachers. They know how to lead and manage the children. They don't know how to lead and manage adults. And if only the adults were as easy as the children, right? So we have to teach them how you manage people, how you drive results, how you build relationships. It's kind of those 4 things: student focus, drive results, manage people, build relationships. And then underneath of those, there's sub-competencies that gets into more specific skills where we have to teach our leaders. I should also mention, by the way, this is where interesting innovation leads to innovation. When you go, instead of top down, when you go bottom up, and I think Houston's a good example of this. We haven't had a flood like New Orleans. We didn't have a game-changing mayoral, gubernatorial election, which creates like this 4-year window to jam everything through. We've been chugging along for 20 years. You've got KIPP, you got Yes Prep, you got Harmony, 3 good charters. We're now serving 30,000 kids with 36,000 kids on the wait list. You've got the Houston, you've now got places like Spring Branch ISD, which are saying, why should we fight cats and dogs with charters when actually we can work together and find the synergy in what we're all doing and do a Gates Compact. And by the way, Gates Foundation is looking for cities that will have the school system and charters work together, and they're going to invest lots of resources in those cities as well, just so you guys know. You've got the Houston Independent School District, which by no means is the jewel yet, but compared to lots of other big city school systems, they're doing a lot better. It's like a tall midget right now, right? And so, but they're all, because everyone's in this competition, right? And what we realize that competition and this system of schools makes it turns innovation leads to innovation. Picture for this one, picture like a NASCAR in pit row, right? And the caption reads, when the gas tank changers, or when the gas tank fillers figure out a way to shave a second off their time, the tire changers are forced to figure out a way to shave a second off their time as well. Innovation leads to innovation. And so you've got the Jones School of Business at Rice University, which became the first business school in the country to now have an MBA track for principals. The business school is certifying principals, right? You've got the Relay Graduate School of Education, which was started in New York City, which is coming to Houston, which is a brand new graduate school of education, which gives master's degrees in teaching, but flips it. When you go to your master's program, your classroom is not at some university, it's your classroom with kids. And your textbook is a flip camera. And you go Wednesday nights or Saturdays to learn more about teaching. You set up your flip camera, you practice what you do, you upload the video to your professor who gives you feedback, and after 2 years, this is what's really neat, your degree does not come from seat time. It comes from competency. To demonstrate you have a master's defense where to get your master's degree, you have to demonstrate how much learning happened. And how much learning is not defined by how much you've learned, it's how much your kids have learned. You have to bring your student results to your master's defense. And if your kids did not make significant academic progress, you don't get your master's degree, right? So it's just innovation leads to innovation. So things like how leaders are happening, it's starting with great teachers, developing them over time, and it's one step at a time. Teachers need to learn how to be grade level chairs and department chairs, right? Then they need to learn how to be APs and deans. They need to learn how to become principals. They need to learn how to become regional leaders. They need to learn how to become superintendents. And it's still building relationships, managing people, driving results, but it gets more complicated at every step along the way. And it's just about careful investment in leadership training along that whole pathway.
Ms. Martinez.
Thank you again for your presentation. I had a question about, obviously with 125 schools, I'm sure that there's a lot of innovation and creativity happening amongst those school buildings.
Absolutely.
Do you have a forum where you're able to share those best practices, and what does that look like? And then I had a second question.
Yep, a few ways. So one, we are definitely starting to leverage technology, not just in the classroom, but for sharing. There's a platform called A Better Lesson, which is basically Facebook for teachers. And we have a way for all of our teachers to basically share their lesson plans and unit tests and other ideas, and hopefully soon video online, where a teacher will post a question. I'm really getting stuck with how you teach fourth graders how to reduce fractions, and other people will reply. You can go look at other people's materials. That's one thing. Two, at the national level, beyond, and again, a system can do this too, what we're doing nationally. Beyond doing the leadership training, once a year we convene weekends where the math teachers get together, the early childhood teachers get together, the special ed teachers get together, live in person. It's one thing to have this digital connection, but you need some FaceTime as well. And then once a year, we get everyone together. We have a big school summit nationally where all the teachers and principals and board members and special ed coordinators and everyone will get in one place and break out in different rooms for all kinds of learning and growing as well. And Hannah, please add. And then there's KIP. And then what we've started doing is beyond training our own leaders. We've also, we got this large grant from the Department of Education a couple years ago, and we're leveraging it not just to train more leaders for KIP, but again to help other people learn what we've done. At KIP, we don't believe in IP. We want to give it away. We're Teach for America alumni, and we believe in that mission of one day all children should get a great education, not one day KIP's children. And so we've created this fellowship called KIP Leadership Design Fellowship, where we invite districts not to send people to train to be principals, but like the superintendents and other leaders of the HR strategy to come and spend time with us to learn how we do leadership development, so they can beg, borrow, and steal all those ideas and bring them back to their school system as well. And
Reynoldsburg is participating in that program.
Good.
Is that right, Mike?
They are. That's good. So we're all open to helping and sharing moving forward on those type of things as well.
Mike, it's
Ms.
good
Johnson?
to see. Thank you, Mike. It's good to see you again. Thank you for your presentation.
My pleasure.
I'm hoping that this commission is going to recommend decentralizing, schools and giving more autonomy to principals. But the principals currently in our district are led by central office. Is it possible to take those principals? It's a totally different skill set. You can't say, well, I'm going to decentralize and go forth and do good work.
Yeah.
Can you take the group of principals we have now and say, okay, we're going to do things differently here. We're going to give you more autonomy. What are the skill sets that people would need to do that, and can you take the current people and do that?
That's the thing. I mean, if in a heavily centralized model, your leaders are they're unfortunately nothing more than store managers. They're just coming in, they're turning on the lights and minding the store, and decisions are being made elsewhere. When you free it up, there's going to be a group that are going to say, "Thank God, I've been praying for this day," and they're going to run. And there's a group they're going to say, "Oh," and they're going to use a bad word, right? And because now they're scared to death because they don't know what to do. Among that group, some of those folks, if they have the training and development which they never got, because let's face it, the pathway to being a principal, unfortunately, does not involve great training on how to be a great leader and manager. You learn at a great ed school, you learn the pedagogy really well. First off, there's too many of our ed schools are not good, and that's sorry if unfortunately that's a brutal fact. There are good ed schools, but they're good at teaching the pedagogy. They've not yet figured out how you really work on training people to become leaders and managers of adults. So within that group, there are people that they could be great, they just never had the training and experience. Now they need to get it. There's another group that, frankly, when you do the Eye of Sauron shifts and you do give bottom up, you're going to realize you got some people who should not be principal anymore. And that's sad and unfortunate, but ultimately, and this, a question to really kind of push yourself and ask, it seems like a simple question, but it's not, is does the public education system exist to benefit the children, or is it a jobs program for the adults? I mean, at first blush, we will all quickly say, of course it's about the children, right? But if we really dig into all of our laws, rules, regulations, policies, and we ask that question on every specific rule and policy, we're going to find some things we do that are put in place that's hard to justify how it's helpful to children, right, instead of being helpful to adults. And I think we have to that's the lens. I suggest that you think everything you do, ask that question through that lens of, is this going to be helpful? Ultimately, it's got to be about both. The way we help the children is through the adults. I train my teachers and leaders all the time on what I call the airplane analogy. Think about when you're boarding an airplane and they give you directions before the flight takes off of what where the emergency exits are. So I had a career in that. And then but they also tell you what to do if the cabin loses air pressure and the oxygen masks come down and you're traveling with a minor. What do they tell you to do? Put on your first. God forbid any of us were ever in that situation with our children. If we were, what would we instinctively want to do? We go right for our kid. And why is that the wrong answer? Because while you are moving to do it for your kid, you pass out. And when you're passed out, what good are you going to be to your kid? So it is all about our children. But if it's all about the children, it starts with us, the adults. Right? Which leads to then the one quote I want all KIPP team and family to remember is a quote by James Baldwin, which reads, children have never been good at listening to their elders, but they never fail to imitate them. Right? So therefore we do need to focus, if it's all about the kids, we have to focus on the adults to provide those oxygen masks to the kids and realize that we're asking people to be great leaders, meaning not that our actions and everything we do is modeling for children what we expect and what we want, and that when you put that kind of expectation on it, the brutal fact is we've got people in the system right now who are going to say hallelujah and ready to fly at that opportunity. There's others who need to leave the system to benefit the children.
Alex?
Mine's really not a question but rather a question to commission co-chairs and the rest of us and maybe staff. You bring up ed schools, and I think something we haven't dug deep enough as a commission is, what's a good ed school look like, and do we have one? And if we don't, what do we need to do to migrate it? Because it's still about a source term. We still know where the majority of our source term are coming from, and that's our local Ohio-based ed schools. And I don't have a good sense of whether or not they're doing the job they need to be doing in complement to everything we've been discussing from an overall plan. So just an observation that I think there's a body of work to understand the best practices in ed schools and to do an honest assessment of the work being done by those ed schools in Ohio that are populating our own district schools, and to understand what changes at the ed school level are needed.
It's a great question. As a whole, there are great ed schools out there. As a whole, they're not being held accountable, right? There's no, which I mean, you want to quickly have that Eye of Sauron shift. Start making ed schools accountable by tracking the achievement results of their alumni students, right? And now you're going to quickly get some more accountability.
I mean, our problem may not be, I mean, I'm certain it's not solely a district problem, and in fact, the problem may rest downstream. And so we could, fix everything at the district level, if that's the right terminology, and if you still have the wrong source term coming through the system, and you're having to remediate that, adjust it, moderate it, at the teacher level, at the principal level, at the leadership level, then we're sub-optimizing.
All right, Ms. Langenhop and then Ms. Augenstein.
I want to add my thanks and appreciation for an inspiring presentation. Building on the discussion that we had in the first part of the morning, how do you deal with discipline issues at the KIPP schools? And what kind of turnover do you see in the enrollees at your school, and how do you think those two might be related?
Yep, it's a great question. So, charter schools are part of the public education system. So the rules for having kids leave apply the same thing. We can't kick kids out unless there is expulsion with full due process hearings and everything else. And you cannot kick a kid out because they roll their eyes, and you cannot kick a kid out because of whatever their parents did or did not do. You look at Mathematica, just spent the last 4 or 5 years going deep and studying KIPP in every way, shape, and form, and they compared our results and demographics to other schools in the neighborhoods we serve. They found that KIPP kids actually come to us performing a little bit worse than the neighborhood schools, that we don't lose kids at any rate beyond what the other schools lose them at, and we still make significant progress. The reason comparing the neighborhood schools is important because there are other factors at play. Like in 2003, we beat ourselves up badly because we lost, I remember one year, like 40% of all of our kids at our school in Oakland. And we're like, and it was unacceptable, and we got to fix it. Once we dug in, we realized that all the schools were losing enrollment because the whole neighborhood was gentrifying and all low-income families were leaving the neighborhood. And I mean, we still hold ourselves accountable, but that you realize there are other factors out there at play beyond just a school. So with that said, we definitely have discipline systems. As you can imagine with our 5 pillars, there's not one system we use in all our schools. What KIPP Journey is doing is not the same thing that I'm doing at KIPP Academy Middle School in Houston or that KIPP's doing in Oakland. But in general, if you have the general elements of a good discipline system is also a good reward system for children where they need to learn right from wrong. They need to, they need to learn. We're very much disciples of character learning at KIPP, where we work with Martin Seligman and Angela Duckworth, University of Pennsylvania. Realize that if our kids are successful in life, they not just are learning how to read, write, compute, and think, but they know perseverance, they know optimism, they know self-control, they know empathy. None of us are born with those things. We've learned them. And by definition, if you learn something, it must have been taught. And so we're trying to unpack how do you teach those things and measure how well kids are learning them, which is why we need a longer school day to do that. we don't have character class Thursdays at 2 o'clock. It's just we are looking for the teachable moments during the day where kids have opportunities to make the good choice or the bad choice. And when they make the good choice, there's praise and rewards, and we walk them through why it was a great choice to make. And when they make a bad choice, there's consequences. And so in general, the discipline plan is basically when you do the right thing, good things happen. When you do the wrong thing, bad things happen. And that's defined differently whether you're talking about a 5-year-old, 10-year-old, or 15-year-old. And again, we definitely don't try to do that top-down because we let the teachers and principals who know the kids, know the community, know the parents best, they're the ones who make the decision of how that plays out every given day, week, and year.
Ms. Augenstein?
Okay. Kids Ohio has sent me a list of the charter schools that's in our area. Thank you. And then I had made a spreadsheet of the list, and I think their list had maybe 68, and then mine had 79. But then around the corner from my house, there's 3 other ones that's not on either list. And so I'm kind of biased to charters because I've worked with Kip, with Hannah, and I've worked with Andy at Columbus Collegiate Academy and Graham, and so I want to support them all the way because I know they're doing great things. So what's your suggestion because to me in those lists, it just looked like a reflection of Columbus City School District. You know, the same amount of ones that are succeeding, the same amount that's failing. What's your suggestion on how we can support the ones that are succeeding and eliminate the other ones?
So we're actually working on this in Texas right now as well with legislation. It's a two-pronged thing. What are we doing? Is grow what works, right? Figure out who's doing good work and help them do more of it. Figure out who's not doing good work and stop them. And you know, for too long in Texas, we always try to get more help for the good charters without addressing the bad charters. And we got to keep it. There are bad. Again, as I said at the beginning, charters are not one size fits all. So there's good charters, there's okay charters, and bad charters. And I think what Ohio needs to do is do what Texas is doing, which is figure out how to have stronger legislation to make it easier to close bad charters, and at the same time make it easier for the good charters to keep doing their thing and grow. So what that looks like is, first off, there needs to make sure that there's quality authorizing in place so that the chances of a bad charter happening moving forward, no one's perfect, it'll happen, but it's not a high chance because there's good authorizing that will only let good charters start. When mistakes are made and a charter is not doing a good job, what are we doing to empower the authorizer, the state, whoever, to close that school and not have it continue to linger for years and years in litigation? For the schools that are doing a good job, what are we doing to make it easier for them to, when they have a line around the block, right, they should not have to go through a lengthy, difficult process to replicate and add another campus, nor should they have to spend lots of time and energy at the end of their charter term for renewal. There should be like if you're doing it at a certain level, kind of automatic renewal, just keep doing your thing. And then lastly, I believe the dollar should follow the child. Charters should not get more money than the school system, but whatever whatever the school system is spending, when a family takes their child out of a traditional public school and puts them 2 blocks away in a charter public school, right, that mother or grandma or dad or grandpa should not lose thousands of dollars for their child's education as a result of that move 2 blocks away.
Last question, Mr. Fisher.
That issue of the dollar following the child, and I look at your graph and see where the KIPP schools are around the country. There's one here. Are Ohio laws an inhibitor from your expansion of your great programs?
I think it's hard for us to grow a lot here without significant philanthropy, which is a problem. But what percent do we get here compared to the system? 60? Half? Ugh, that's a problem. In Texas, I get 90%, and I'm not happy with that. So at 50%, that's a shame. That should change.
All right, we'd like to thank you very much for taking your time coming to visit.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Lunch is just around the corner. So I encourage you to pick up your lunches, and there's seats over here for us to have small group discussions. Thank you.